Carrie Ball, welcome to GTM Mentors podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I feel honoured to even be asked.
So, I want to talk about Rippling, of course. It's been an extraordinary last 12 months and beyond for you guys in region, hiring a lot more than what is average right now in this market. Could you talk to us about what that's looked like since you joined?
Yes, so I joined Rippling in August 2023. I don't know what number employee I was in Australia, but it would have been under 10, I think. So the first people that we hired, there was 4 people hired in July 2023, 2 SDRs, an SDR manager, and our VP and head of Asia, which is Matt Luke. And then I started in August. So we're kind of, I think, above 80 now, mainly all in Sydney, just for Australia. And there's other people in other countries in Southeast Asia as well.
So how's that worked out in terms of number of hires per month?
Well, so in terms of recruiting quotas, some of the hiring has been done by some of the recruiting team in India because I wasn't able to actually manage it. But generally speaking, it's usually looked like 15 to 20 a quarter for me at the moment. And sometimes that goes up and down depending on the seniority of the role. If I've got multiple headcounts of the exact same position, all of that. But certainly we actually have a really great recruiting team across the Rippling globally, and some of them have been awesome in assisting me with some of the roles that I just haven't had time for. Plus, we've also, because the demand has been so great, just actually hired another full-time permanent recruiter in Sydney in February called Amanda Tran. So she is my recruiting buddy and she's awesome.
Nice. And what's been the approach, Carrie, with this global team you mentioned? Is it outbound? Is it search? Do you get a lot of inbound? What's been the split, would you say?
We have a dedicated sourcing team as well. So it is really, really well set up. And we can talk about it. I think this is probably going to be covered later, but recruiting as a function is very, very highly resourced and respected and valued. I think more so than other SaaS companies I've seen. And so we have recruiting coordinators, we have recruiting ops, we have sourcing team, we have recruiters. And so we have everything we need to try and succeed in hiring the best people. We have an alarming number of inbound applications, particularly in some areas and roles, but also to find the right people, there's a lot of sourcing done. So given I've been on my own for a long time in Australia, I've not had a lot of sourcing support. They're busy doing other roles, which is completely fine. And so, part of that is the LinkedIn strategy and trying to get ahead of it there. So I do a lot of outbound, like in mails from LinkedIn as well. So it's a bit of both, but I would say if we look at hiring, for me, I could pull these figures, but probably sourced candidates. We've got sourced candidates, we've got referrals, we've got inbound apps. Inbound apps, when I look at last quarter, was about 50%.
You touched on it. I want to talk about it more. So you mentioned that recruiting is well resourced, it's well thought of. Something that I would say that's not the standard in SaaS, but across every business talks about their greatest advantage is people, but how many actually make recruitment a priority? Can you talk to me about what your experience has been previously and your thoughts on why that isn't the case across other organizations?
It's an interesting question because I don't know. Someone said to me a few years ago when I went back into a full-time recruiting role, because I'd been in like people ops where I've had to manage some recruiting, but it wasn't my whole job. So when I went back into a full-time recruiting job at Slack, which candidly was just simply because I wanted to work at Slack and it was the only job available at the time. So I found myself back in recruiting, and look, there was no problem there with being treated badly or without respect or anything like that. But someone at that point said to me, just remember, everyone hates recruiters. And I was like, is that right? And so that really kind of shocked me a little bit. And I don't know in other SaaS organizations how they're treated, if it's just like we are working for someone as like support staff where we're trying to just be admin people that'll fill roles. That is not the case at Rippling. It certainly wasn't the case at Slack either or at Salesforce. But I think the philosophy at Rippling is we are scaling. We put a lot of emphasis on product and engineering, and also so they are the people that are building our product, sales are the people that are selling our product to get us revenue, and recruiting is the engine that feeds those two functions. So when we need resources in recruiting, we generally get them, and like I said, we actually have a really large recruiting team, I think, and our leadership has a genuine seat at the table. So why other companies don't do this, I don't know. Is it because people don't think recruitment recruitment is a proper profession or they don't like recruiters. I'm not really sure of the reason, but I definitely know that is not the case at Rippling. You are very much treated like a professional business partner who is hired and working, partnering, not working for someone, but actually partnering with your leaders to get these roles filled.
It's a great point. I think partnering's really, really pivotal. I worked internal myself, and I was actually surprised at how much of it is similar to agency recruitment. You've really got to build a relationship with the hiring manager. You've got to prove that you can provide an outcome for them. And it's really still quite sales focused, really, to be able to manage and hold that relationship with senior people. And I think that's something that a lot of organizations miss out on. They typically hire junior staff. They don't train them very well in terms of how to do that. And maybe they go into the role thinking that it's a bit more of a HR role, when in fact it's outbound, and you've got to build these relationships. And then I think what can happen is hiring managers begin to opt out because they're not getting the service levels they they require, and they're not leaning into that person to get the best out of them. Creates a bit of friction and a gap, and you have a function that's just not working effectively. Basically, you do make that investment and you do it really well. I think it's one of the best investments you can have. You can have a really good internal recruitment team.
Yep.
I'm surprised that more businesses don't do it successfully.
Mm.
So let's talk about Rippling's success on hiring. What's been the philosophy on hiring, if you could boil it down?
So the philosophy on hiring, there's obviously some overlaps between just Rippling globally, but also there's some specific nuances here in Australia that are a little bit different, because even though we're hiring, we're still scaling here. We've got, we've got the US, we've got Canada, we've got EMEA, we've got India. But Australia being launched, officially our marketing launch was only February 2024. So it's been where no one's known who we are. Like when I first took the job at Rippling, literally the only reason I'd heard of them at all was because Matt Loop, who I knew from Slack, had gone there. So it's not the same as recruiting in a very, very mature market where everyone knows your brand name. So in the US, for example, Rippling as a brand is much better known than what it is here in Australia. People are starting to know who we are now, I believe. When I first started, it wasn't something that people knew about at all. So really, because we are building something literally from the ground up, it's quite interesting because we're in a scale-up environment where the company is thousands of people globally, but in Australia, there was 4 people. And then there was 5 people and 6 people and 7 people. So the types of people that we wanted to hire had to sort of fit into the Rippling values and be culture out in that respect, but also be people that were really interested in helping to build something in region. So I find that the most successful hires have been someone that's actually excited by that, and they are thinking, okay, I am actually joining something at ground level. Everyone in our office, I believe, believes that Rippling is going to be a $100 billion company one day. Like we will be the Salesforce of HR tech. And they want to get in on that early. They want to be able to say, I was the first AM in region, I was the first TAM or whatever, or one of the founding members. But it also means that those are the types of people that are wanting to have the ability to lean in and help in other areas and stray outside their lane. So that was one of the reasons I wanted to take the job. I thought I actually loved the idea of coming into something where, even though it's established globally, there's really nothing here, and I can actually help totally make an impact. Lean into things that I'm interested in, do my job, of course, but be part of actually setting a new culture for this company in Sydney. And so I think the types of people that are successful in the interview process and actually like being at Rippling are ones that thrive on that environment. They usually have a bit of an entrepreneurial streak. They like the fact that not everything is set up perfectly. We're big enough to have processes, of course, but sometimes they need to be nuanced for our market. So people that actually want to come in and contribute more than just staying in one single lane like a cog in a wheel.
And it's very, very similar to other startups and scale-ups that we support as well, that type of profile you mentioned, Carrie. What kind of indicators have you found are the best predictors of success with those people? Is it coming from a similar environment, or are there any other types of things that you look for to prove that or give some evidence that they'd be capable?
I think in the interview process, obviously I'm interviewing people at top of funnel. I can only go so deep. Really, it depends. It does depend on the role, but really what we're looking for is like grit and resilience, able to deal with a certain amount of chaos, I guess, and just a fast pace. someone that's used to dealing with a fast pace and that doesn't scare them off. So I guess if someone's coming in from a really big company where they've done enterprise deals, really long sales cycles, everything is really set up, they're often people that probably would struggle here. It's not to say they can't adapt, but the people that are really a good fit for Rippling, they can show that they've had resilience and grit. They've been able to pivot. Maybe they've been at an early stage company where they've helped to build something and they love that. Sometimes I get people applying because their company has outgrown that phase and they actually really miss it and they want to get back to actually that building stage. That's always a good sign. But I think in terms of testing that in interviews, it's really about why Rippling, why now, and just seeing what people say. Of course, people can make things up, of course, but then they're sort of tested throughout the process. But the motivations that they have for wanting to join us often are the key to sort of unlocking what sort of environment they really want to be in. And we almost do, like, on a job offer and during the process, we almost sort of try and do a negative sell to scare people off. And, part of that is, look, it is actually really hard to work at Rippling. It is a really hectic environment. It is fast paced. Things are always changing. We're in a scaling mode. We're building something new in region, and just see who is scared off by that. And the people that aren't scared off for that are the people that are driving our culture.
Interesting. With you obviously built quite a large SDR team as well. SDRs typically come in without a lot of experience, right? Where you could point to areas where they've done this kind of thing before. Are there any type of soft traits or experience you look for with them to prove out on grit, resilience, things like that?
Yeah, definitely. So, look, I'm always hiring for SDR. So, if anyone's listening to this and you want to be an SDR at Rippling, hit me up, send me a message, send Ron a message on LinkedIn, who's our senior manager. We've got a great SDR team. With inbound SDRs, it's like the manager, Kate Viviano, actually always says to me, look, I actually don't want someone with sales experience. I'm actually happy to take someone who's been in a busy role, who's worked hard, who wants to learn. So I think if people come into an interview process for an SDR, sometimes they come in and they actually have no idea what an SDR does. And a key part of an SDR's role is research and discovery. And so that is a massive red flag, because when you are hiring for SDRs, it's quite different than other roles because you're not expecting a whole lot of experience. And so often they're present and their interview and what they're bringing in, the questions they're asking are really good indicators of, do they actually really want to be this? Do they want this? Are they going to be able to be in a role where they can follow people up? They can do discovery. So sometimes I'll say to people, like, they need to get back to me with certain information or call me and they just don't do it. And I think, well, that's a very, very simple thing that I'm looking for at that sort of stage, to be able to come with doing a little bit of research on us, understanding what an SDR does and why do you actually want that kind of role, and just understanding if they have an idea of Rippling and our value proposition. And particularly, I would expect more research the further down the process they are. I don't expect someone to have researched for 2 hours to have a screening with me, not at all. But I think just for an SDR, the interview process and how well prepared they are and their motivations is key.
Sure. What are some of the other key traits that you found among the successful people you've hired at Rippling?
Just generally speaking, I think probably just leaning back into what I was saying before, I think people that are keen to join an early stage company, or at least early stage in region, and that they are not scared off by a fast paced, they are excited by growing something. And so people that are just really keen to get their teeth stuck in, and they're actually excited to join us rather than joining a big company like Salesforce, for example. Nothing against Salesforce at all. I've worked there. They treat their people very well. Nothing against them, but it is a very different type of environment to work in. So there's nowhere to hide at Rippling. Everyone knows everyone in the office. Everyone knows what they're meant to be doing. But I think also we want to look for people that are happy to, break down walls to get the job done, be problem solvers, be curious, and just be willing to step outside their lane again to just help. I see a problem over there. I know how to help with that. I'm going to help that person. And so it's a very collaborative culture. While people are generally, not that there's this hustling has a negative connotation. I don't mean it that way, but people are hustling, getting their own job done, but they're also very aware of the goals of our like Australian team and what we are actually trying to achieve. It's like we've got this, like an airplane, we're all trying to get off the ground together. And so there's very much a sense of teamwork there. And I think people that are attracted to that mission, particularly with our stage of growth, are the ones that have been successful.
Yeah, it's a unique balance, particularly in sales, right? There's I suppose, there's a legacy view that top salespeople are very siloed, lone wolves, but in fact, finding someone that's a great seller, but also really interested in being part of the team and building, it's quite a unique thing. What's been the biggest challenge in hiring at Rippling today? You don't have a massive demand problem now. Lots of people are interested in the brand, but what would you say is the biggest challenge?
Look, we do get a fair amount of inbound applications for some roles. For others, we don't. I think one of the challenges has been with Rippling. We have a payroll product, and the nuances around payroll are very, very specific. And so, people that understand Australian payroll, there's over 100 modern awards, and not only that, we are also a platform company. So we have over 30 products. It is a very, very complex sell. So where someone else could potentially go from one SaaS company to another and use the same transferable skills, that can be done here, but in certain roles, we actually do really need people that have some kind of payroll knowledge, and sometimes they're not easy to find because the market's not huge for that. So it's not the case in every role, but in some roles it is required, and so that has been challenging, just finding the right talent there. It's actually kind of sad for me because I look at great profiles and I think, oh, that person looks awesome. I'd love to give them a chance. But sometimes in some roles, if they just don't have that specific payroll industry knowledge, I just can't do anything. So that is a challenge. Rippling's very open about the fact that we do a hybrid working model that they do 3 days a week in the office. I don't find this a challenge in sales and go-to-market roles. People are expecting that. I think there's many other SaaS companies in Sydney that are doing 3 or 4 days in the office. That's not an issue. But with some other functions, it can be hard because they are used to more flexibility or remote work than what we can offer in some other functions. So they would be probably some of the challenges that I've found so far. I guess the other one is, yes, we do get the inbound apps, but we're really told that we only hire A-grade talent. So I don't have a job for everyone, unfortunately. I really wish I did. I hate declining people, I really do, but I have a certain amount of headcount and they literally want the best people.
For sure, yeah. And I probably laboured on it, the inbound element, but you're a big part of that, right? Rippling's obviously a great product. People want to go work for a great product. But if we think about sales, it's not easy to get people to move, right? So a big part of the inbound and making people aware of it's like to work at Rippling, what the opportunity looks like. I feel it's actually been, from you and your activity on LinkedIn more recently, you're very recognizable. You've been doing something which I think is unique. It isn't often done by internal talent teams, agency teams too. So yeah, I'd love to talk about LinkedIn, how that came about. So what prompted you to start posting on LinkedIn, and how's that really evolved from the initial?
Yep. So it's kind of a funny story. When I started at Slack, I had less than 500 connections. I didn't post ever. Didn't use really LinkedIn. The company before that didn't pay for a LinkedIn recruiter license. It was too expensive. So I really didn't spend much time on there at all. When I got to Slack, first of all, I realized that's where all the candidates are. I need to be on there. But when we got acquired by Salesforce, within a few months of joining, I was sort of scooped up into a Salesforce reporting line and recruiting team. And the team was awesome. I actually have made some really good friends in that team. And ultimately, we all got laid off together. But so it's absolutely nothing against Salesforce, but it just wasn't what I had intended to join. So I kind of ended up there by accident. And so when that happened, I thought to myself, two things why I decided to start posting on LinkedIn. One was, as I mentioned, that's where all the candidates are. I need to make people essentially reply to my emails. That was about the time that friend said to me, everyone hates recruiters. So I thought, okay, if I need for my job people to either apply or respond to my email and everyone hates recruiters, maybe I just need to make myself seem like a likable recruiter. So I decided to just that's what I decided to do. I thought I just want people to think, if I'm going to send them an email, she's funny or she posts helpful things, I'll reply to her when I wouldn't otherwise have. And literally that's sort of how it started. And look, the other reason is I thought to myself, I don't know how long I'm going to want to stay here. So if I am already posting on LinkedIn, maybe I can try and future-proof my employment. So if I build my network that way, when it comes to the time of needing another job, people probably know who I am. And they were the two reasons why I started.
Yeah, wow, you're a talent magnet. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So the metrics of it then, did you think about how often you wanted to be posted on LinkedIn, what types of content, or has it been kind of organic?
kind of a bit of both, even though that sounds like it's contradicting itself. I knew nothing about anything, so I just basically started posting things that I found amusing or educational or funny. I then sort of looked into a little bit more how I would build up my strategy, and I had another friend who'd been in a very high level comms job for a public figure, and he ran all that person's LinkedIn and Twitter, and so he actually just taught me how to build a strategy, how to work out my like pillars, and just different ways to write and share content. But like, I'm just always learning. I feel almost like I shouldn't even be giving anyone advice about this, because I still feel like I don't know what I'm doing. LinkedIn does change quite a lot, and I think lately it's favoring different types of content. So I'll still put something on and go, geez, why did that go so well, or why did that not go so well? And I have to try and just figure it out. So I am very much learning along the way. There's a few people that I follow that are quite helpful in just sort of working this out. Yeah, I literally just learned along the way, and it's just trial and error. And what that means is you have a bunch of flops as well. You put something on, you think, oh, I thought that was really great, and then no one really likes it. And you're like, okay, well, why did that not do well? But then I put something else on that does way better than what I thought. I'm like, geez, I'm confused now. So it's absolutely an evolving thing, and I think if someone's listening to this and thinking about whether they want to do it, I think just give it a go, because it really does take time, and it takes a lot of courage to press that post button for the first 1,000 times, really. So, just go for it and see what happens.
I think what takes even more courage, Carrie, is to do it in your own voice. We were both at the Scott Leese event last week, and I've heard him talking about this before. LinkedIn's probably the only social platform where it is you. You know, it's very visible that it's you. You can't hide behind anything else because you're front and center at all times, and you've got a big audience. And I think on LinkedIn, it's very corporate speak. Much of it is advertising, it's marketing. But I think if you're courageous enough, like you've been, to go on and do it in your own voice, be fun, be a little bit casual, but also professional, I think that's cut through, because it doesn't sound corporate speak. It sounds like, they're talking to Carrie even though they've never met you for the first time. I think that's what people feel often. And I think they get a really good insight into what the culture's like at rippling as well, to be honest, because you can write, your values down on a whiteboard and tell people coming through, but actually seeing some of you and some of your posts and other people in the organization engaging with them does make it feel like it's quite relaxed and not so corporate. Would you say that is what the culture's like?
Yes, I would. I don't know how well I would survive in a super corporate culture, to be honest. I'm not sure, because that's just not me. So everything that you write is written by me. Like everything you read is written by me. This is why I can't really use AI to, and maybe I'm not doing it right, but if I've ever tried to put something into AI to write something, it just comes out and it just doesn't sound like me, and I'm like, no, I can't do it. So I think particularly culture in our office, it's not corporate, like, because you do see people dressed up in ties and shirts. They've got customer meetings. It's all very smart people working very, very professionally, but at the same time you've got leadership who also really enjoy having a laugh, and we like having fun together. And so there is that mix of being able to be very professional, very, very good at what they do, but also like just being friendly and enjoying like a gif and a laugh and a joke and drinks with the team. So it's both of those things. And so I would never post anything online that wasn't true, because really I don't want to hire people that are going to end up as a square peg in a round hole. I want to attract the people that are going to be good for our business.
Sure. And so what has been the effect, if you think about job application numbers or types of candidates, the channel that those candidates are applying through, what has been the effect since you've become more prominent on LinkedIn, would you say?
I mean, I haven't really measured it, to be honest. Maybe I should, because I was already doing it when I first started at Rippling. It's not like I have a before and after particularly. I just get a lot of feedback from candidates that meet me and messages out of the blue. So I think it is obviously making an impact. But I mean, it's not specifically something I'm told to do in my job. So like, you can have other recruiters who choose not to do that, and that's fine. But I guess for me, I find it really fun. I just like writing stuff. And also thinking we didn't have a brand in Australia. That's sort of why I thought it was important for me to be writing LinkedIn content. I guess, look, the other thing is and this is probably diverting from what your question really was. So you can cut this out if you want. But because when that person told me a while ago, everyone hates recruiters, that really stuck in my mind. I have a genuine compassion for candidates going through an interview process, because I hear lots and lots of horror stories about just how stressful it is. They just have no visibility. They're not communicated with. They don't know what they're doing wrong. And so some of the posts I put down are genuinely like, even though I might not be able to hire this person, I want to help you be able to get a job somewhere else, and lift the hood a little bit on just some tips on like what you could be doing to do better in your interview, to find the right recruiter and message them, or like whatever it is. Because I do genuinely feel like for recruiters, it's professional for me, right? I'm doing my job every time I interview someone, but for them, it's actually their career, but it's for something very, very personal. And so I genuinely feel a lot of empathy for that, for people. And if I can try and make it a little bit easier, that is the intent, I suppose, to try and help them if I can. Sometimes I can't help them by giving them a job. I'm not the decision maker and I don't have a job for everyone. But if I can help it be a little bit less confusing and stressful, then I want to do that.
How much outreach do you get from candidates on LinkedIn?
I get enough that I have to have an auto message on now saying, I might take a bit to get back to you, and, if you're interested in a role. Again, haven't measured it, but I'm constantly getting messages from people all the time about different roles, or sometimes I'll just get random messages going, that post made me laugh, thank you, which is really nice. But quite a lot of LinkedIn messages, so I have to make sure I don't let any. So I really hope there's no one listening that I missed your message and didn't reply to you. I do try and reply to everyone, but sometimes there's probably some that slip through the cracks. I'm sorry.
What's the worst thing about using LinkedIn as a talent engagement platform?
In terms of creating content?
No, I'm thinking that's obviously a huge task for you to get back to everybody that reached out to you personally. Is there anything that has been a hindrance in terms of using it for candidate engagement?
I don't think there's really been much. I think probably just like I said, people that I know we can really never hire, they don't have the right experience, like seeing that I'm a friendly face wanting to message and I just can't give them what they want. But I don't really think there's any downside other than personally just getting frustrated with the platform where, like reach is down or whatever, and you got to figure out what's wrong with your content, or you get annoyed and blame the algorithm, even though maybe that's not the case. So probably just personally, that is a frustrating thing about LinkedIn. But in terms of candidate like engagement, I don't think I've had any really bad experiences. Occasionally you might get someone putting a snarky comment on and just sort of working out what to deal with it. I don't get too many of those because part of my strategy is I never ever post anything controversial. I don't comment and I don't argue with anyone ever. So I don't get too many, but I definitely see them on other types of posts and think, oh, that would not be fun. So a little bit when that's happened, it's not great. But apart from that, I think the positives outdo the benefit, like the negative, sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think it's so undervalued as a tool for communicating at scale as well, and that you do so well. Candidates just want to know what's going on, right? And I think the LinkedIn messaging app is just brilliant for just checking in. I find it's probably the platform that I use more than emails, more than anything else, just to be able to talk to people at scale. And you talk to so many candidates senior candidates that have applied for jobs they never even heard back, and it's a job they could do really easily. They might be working for a competitor organisation, they just don't have any experience. And I just hear of, talent teams worried about which ATS they should be implementing or buying. And it's like, go back to basics, make sure you're talking to all your candidates and focus on that first without, trying to complicate a problem. And I think this is the way that you can do it at scale. You just got to be a little bit cautious about doing it. You talked about helping candidates and giving them some advice. What kind of things do you think candidates can be doing better across the board when we're talking about applications, engaging with hiring managers, engaging with a recruiter, interviewing? Any top tips you think could be helpful right now?
Yeah, sure. So I think a couple of things. I think particularly in sales roles, multi-threading is always good. So putting an application in and then you message the recruiter and then you message the hiring manager, but you find out who those people are. And then afterwards you message them again. So I think then you message someone in the team. So I think I don't want to sound like I'm advocating like stalking the company or anything like that, but I think for specific roles, I think that can be really helpful. And not a lot of people do that, because if you are looking for someone that is hungry to get new business in a sales role and that is how you approach your job search, I think that's a green flag. I would say what a lot of people don't do and this is just such a simple thing, is they don't check spam. So I'll often send someone an email saying I'd love to chat with you, and then because I've got a lot of others, I may not follow up when they haven't booked in. Sometimes I'll go back to it and go, okay, I'll send them a LinkedIn note, which I sometimes do now from the get-go. And I didn't see it. I went to my spam. So I would say if you are job seeking, just check your spam literally every day, because it's amazing how people apply for jobs and then they don't check their voicemail, they don't check their spam folder. And so you've just got to really be on top of that. It sounds really simple, and it is, but a lot of people don't do it. The other thing I think is just spending more than 5 minutes researching the company before jumping on the call. Like, particularly if you are going through the process, you've met the recruiter and you're meeting like a hiring manager, look them up on LinkedIn, stalk their profile, do some research on the company. Like, make sure you've read the job ad really thoroughly and you can speak to making it easier for them to see why you fit what they're looking for. I think probably the prep for that sometimes isn't sufficient, and because I don't expect PhD level or anything like that. And the further down the funnel you are into the process, the more prep you do have to do. In terms of some roles, you'll have to, do a panel or something like that. But just even closer to the start of the process, some people just turning up unprepared, not following up, all of that is just things where it just makes it easier to just go to the next person.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that's available to all, right? Preparation, I'd say, is my biggest as well. Biggest predictor of successful hire is somebody that out-prepares the rest of the talent pool when it comes to an interview and a presentation. And equally, the other, most frustrating thing about hiring process, somebody goes in for an interview and the hiring manager tells you that the person wasn't prepared. It's just a waste of everybody's time. I understand that people want to, build a top funnel with jobs as well, and get lots of things in play. You've got to be a little bit more specific and qualify things out so you've got time to put some preparation into this, because preparation can win you a job, which, there's significant earning opportunity in certain sales roles, for instance, and, just preparing, it can make you stand up in the crowd, which is kind of amazing. Last bit, Carrie, we talked about some green flags there, but I was going to ask you if we could do a quick red flag, quick fire round, and just to finish things off. So, complete this phrase: when a candidate does this in the interview, I know it's a no.
I'll try and be open-minded and not write someone off straight away, but if I ask someone why they're leaving their current role or their last role and they're like, oh, it was just too fast-paced and hectic and I couldn't keep up, then I'm like, oh, I don't know, this is going to work. I don't know if you will thrive and survive in our environment.
And when a hiring manager says this one phrase, I know it's going to be a nightmare to recruit.
Not to name and shame anyone. Of course, they're all amazing at Ripley. Maybe I'll talk about past hiring managers, but I think I loved that candidate. They were absolutely perfect. I'd just love to see a few more.
And last one, biggest pet peeve about, and I know you've been one yourself, Carrie, so gloves are off, but biggest pet peeve about agency recruiters?
Look, I have, as you said, I did start off in agency, by accident, as everyone does. I don't have anything against agency recruiters. I think there's many great ones of them out there, but I think probably being in an internal hiring role, I get lots and lots and lots of outreach for people wanting me to engage them and use their services. It is not something that is in my control to do that. And so if I let them, I try and always reply politely and just let them know. But the ones that keep coming back and saying, like, how about, we go out for a coffee and I just say hello and learn about the business. I just don't have time to do, I wouldn't be able to do my job and meet and have coffee with every agency recruiter. So I think sometimes maybe it's just accepting at the moment that I don't have the ability to engage you and just leaving it at that and just staying connected. That would be great. I understand they're just trying to do their jobs, but yeah, if they don't take no for an answer, that can be a little bit frustrating.
Carrie, you've been a fantastic guest. Thank you so much for coming on and talking to us about Rippling and about yourself and what's been effective for sales hiring this last 12 months. Thank you again.
All right. Thanks so much for having me. Really had fun.